Welcome to our green car. Here's a quarter panel that has some body fill in it, and you can see how thick it was. It's almost a 1/4 inch thick, though when it was painted it looked fine. You can see the color green here, which was the last repaint, and you can see some of the primer underneath of it. There's body fill here, a layer here, and another layer here. That will blast out quite easily. Back in the rear quarter on the top, you can see the brown or tan color. You can see some red primer and then some original primer from the factory. Then you have a green and you have some more red underneath of that as well too. Up here you have the top of the dash, which was all soda blasted. You can see where the rust is here. The rust is still there. There's nothing in soda to remove rust. It's strictly a coating removal tool. We blasted the thin gauge edges around in here and some of the vent dust ducting area to clean it up. And this is the other half. It has glue on it here and adhesives and some of this brown paint or tan or whatever color you might want to call it. We will finish soda blasting this off. This is a thinner area, blast nicely with soda, and it reduces our chances of having a problem with traditional sandblasting, because the primer on here is a little tougher than some other vehicles, so we soda blast it first and profile it afterwards. A lot of people say, hey John, soda will take off all the rust. No, it won't. Well, I saw an article. I read an article. I saw something on TV. This is the front engine area. The dark areas are rust, which were soda blasted over and soda blasted over. It did not remove. Here on the firewall, this is rust. This is down between the firewall and the inner fender. All that's been soda blasted. Rust, rust, rust. Here's an inner fender well. Front left. It's in pretty good shape, but oh, what's that? That's been soda blasted. Still has rust. There is nothing in true soda that will remove rust. What soda is great for is doing a general clean over. It'll take surface stuff off, which is a bit of this black undercoating. It'll leave the primer behind if you don't work it too hard, but it won't take the rust off underneath. You can see in this area here how thick the body fill was on the fender. I'd say at minimum a 1/4 inch. Up in this area here, all this rust was underneath the big piece of body fill. All up front here was all damaged and rusted and corroded. Here's the body fill that came from here. That's how thick it was. Here we are back in the rear wheel well of the car. And as you can see, the thickness of this coating, and this spot is almost as thick as my finger. It's all in around here. And all in there. Inside the wheel well, some of the areas comes off without any problem, but you have to be within 6 inches of it and lean hard on it. You may see that that is a rougher looking profile than on a conventional sandblast, because we had to use an aggressive sand. Here's the driver's side, rear fender. You look in here, that whole void in there was full of body fill. Up in here, we will touch this area up here where there's still a little seam sealer or tar cement. It was a 1/4 inch to 1/2 inch all over. Much of this was buried. You can see up in here, that bolt was completely buried. That black that looks around it is a hole. You come up into the corner, and that was all covered with body fill on top of black undercoating. You can see what happens here is where the black undercoating has actually, even though it was blasted, has seeped out of the seams because it's an oil-based product. Back in there where you see all the gray spots, that's daylight showing through holes that were body filled over. Here's the floorboards now with all the coating removed. The far side there in the bottom corner where the rocker meets the floorboards, those are all holes. This whole door jamb here will all be sandblasted. I wanted to take pictures of it to show a bit of before and after. It looks fine. But if you do look down here, you can see some spider cracking in the paint job. That's body fill letting go. And no wonder, because it probably looks like all this underneath. And our objective today is to get that all out. The door jamb's cleaned up really nice. The bottom of the fender here, that was completely filled with body fill. Coming down here, you can see the depth of the body fill over a patch. The lower rocker panel, we blasted a bit of body fill off so they can get in there to cut that out. That was totally rounded out with body fill. Down underneath of here is the bolts that were buried under body fill that was all caked over. Back quarter here, you can see how thick the body fill was. Back panel's in pretty good shape, but it did have a lot of repairs in this corner where this was all body filled over an inch to inch and a half thick in some spots to make it smooth. The floors are all garbage, so what we did is we blasted where all the seams go together, so at least you can drill it all out and patch new ones in. The whole floor will be replaced. You can see the giant hole here right up through. Not fun on a wet day. This is where the license plate would sit. This was all covered in body fill and filled in there as well too. We stopped here where the fender joins the front shroud. This will be cut out on the left. This will be saved. This is the trunk lid. I soda blasted half. Came up clean. But you can see in this area here, bit of red primer, bit of brown, maybe some of that tan, another primer underneath if it's very patchy. You can see over here another layer of paint and primer. A lot of people say, well, you can soda blast one layer off at a time. This was one pass what I got. This came off, this came off, this started to come off, that came off there but didn't come off there. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 layers of different coatings from factory original to reprimers to repaints, and soda does not always have the capability of taking off paint one layer at a time. In 25 years, haven't seen it. In the trunk area, I did a little blasting again to show you. That's raw steel here, which is clean and in good shape. Rust, 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 rust. This is what the rest of the trunk looks like. The only way to get rid of that rust, sandblast it off. You can see in the left rear quarter all the body work in here and the thick body fill. I'm expecting very thick body fill under there once I go to get it off. So the front left fender is in pretty good shape. Bit of rust and corrosion down in this area still here. We'll spot blast that. This is in good shape. That's not so good. This is the front dash on the driver's side. Someone's put some body fill in there. We'll take that out. Then we'll come down here. You can see a bit of overspray where it's clean steel. We'll sandblast all this. You can see some body work down in here where there's some brazing, and I just haven't got down underneath of here yet where the rest of the body fill is. So what is important to remember, even though soda will take off paint and coatings, it won't take off rust. And right here you can see rust. If you don't take that off and you primer it over, it's only going to come back again. So in areas like this, we'll go around, we'll trim all the edges. We find on English cars that the sheet metal is a little thinner than a Mustang or a Camaro or a Dodge Cuda or whatever you might have American made. So we typically will soda blast all these edges to get the worst of it off, and then we just dress it up with sand to give it a profile. We can lean a little bit more on it without having to worry about distorting these edges. This is thin, not so well supported. It's thicker than some other areas of some cars, but we don't like to take a chance.